Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm pleased to be able to sit down today with Enzo from OKEx, the cryptocurrency exchange. Really glad that he's taken the time, and I'm just interested to answer your guys' questions about OKEx and also just to have a chat about blockchain and Bitcoin, man. So Enzo, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. So how are you enjoying Blockchain Week?
It's going well. I was in Vegas in the beginning part of the week.
For WCC?
For Coin Agenda and actually WCC and Litecoin Summit. We're all going on at the same time.
That's a lot. Wow, geez.
There was a full-blown, poker tournament.
Yep.
With the Lambos outside and all the crypto guys on the inside, all the real old school kind of crypto guys. With some famous poker. I'm not a poker guy, so I didn't recognize the names, but really famous guys there. And that was fun. And then I headed over here to speak on the main stage and actually speak about what we're working on this global basis for OKEx. It's the number one exchange in futures trading. Spot trading, we're like number 3, maybe 4. But we really believe in the futures markets. We also actually believe that the exchanges are going to have to step up. The top 5 or 6 or 8, we have to start acting more like a group of exchanges where the cryptocurrency exchange market are really the only group that's making money. So we need to be the ones that are going to implement maybe more of a global standard and try to make it mainstream. We have an opportunity to take it mainstream. I'm a former NASDAQ guy. I spent 7 years there. I built a services business there for NASDAQ clients. It was for the issuers. So proxy work and investor relations type tech. And all of that stuff is going to have to come over here too. So we have to think about how do we function with the most efficient clearing and settlement system in the world, which is blockchain, work together as a major new group of companies that are coming onto the scene. Because once the older exchanges, start thinking about, okay, we're ready to get into crypto, it's going to be really a lot of competition.
So what do you think, you just kind of mentioned about like the exchanges stepping it up, the big exchanges stepping it up. Like, can you give me some examples of where we could do better?
I think it's just about us. So right now, the major exchanges try to compete a lot. And it's kind of silly at this point.
They're competing for liquidity, obviously.
They compete for the liquidity, they compete for customers, and they try to deal with all the different laws and the governments and the jurisdiction issues. My whole thing is let's start to set up like a global SRO, like a Paris Accord. Let's start to work as exchanges together. We can still compete. I did this at NASDAQ. We were in a group, a nonprofit organization, like that's global, that has members of all the major exchanges in it. We would work together as exchanges in order to push our agenda for fair markets. And the most important thing is that if the jurisdictions all have different types of rules, it's going to clog up that back office efficiency of clearing and settlement via blockchain, and it'll just become the same old structure that we have now. So why do we want to get? There's no reason for us to be there.
Right.
We need to say to everyone, we're going to work as a complete industry. We're going to work together to create a viable business model where companies can compete on a global basis. The efficiency of blockchain can really pull out all of the tactical issues and around transfer of money or actually transfer of any asset class. We have to define the different asset classes in a way that makes sense, like what's a security token versus a futures and so on and so forth. So it all has to be defined, and if the government rules look similar across the globe, we'll have a much more efficient marketplace. If they all look different, and one's blocking it and one's not, one's saying this, one's saying that, it just creates a lot of FUD and it creates a lot of problems. And we're sitting on the next level of the evolution of this entire of finance, of database, of all of this stuff. I mean, everything's in a database. Every asset, every computer system has a database attached to it. So you're talking about maybe dropping firewalls and having the actual data encrypted where it's all public. I mean, there's always so much that can happen here if we get on the right page. And I think what we're doing right now is we're spending a lot of time in the chasm, because we're like in the crypto winter, and we're all trying to see who's going to survive. But the fact is that as the exchanges, we make money. We should be funding new blockchains, investing, growing, working together, being the leaders of the industry, because we are at the top of that food chain in many ways. That may not be forever, but if you look at certain token projects, they're trying to do the same thing. Like there's the funding behind EOS, and they have a fund, and they're trying to get more folks to go on their blockchain. We have the OK chain, where we have 14 companies now on there, and they're building on our blockchain stack. And I think that's part of the mission for us, is that ourselves, Binance, Huobi, whoever, Coinbase, whoever, we all have to figure out how to really make this a much more effective market, so that the institutional money can come in, and retail money can also come in a safe way.
What's OKEx's biggest customer regionally speaking, and where are you guys looking to expand?
So we do have a large presence out of China, or out of Asia in general. We do have growing markets of Russia, Australia, mostly around the Eastern European area. We are expanding into the EU because of Malta and Canada, and then via the OKCoin sister relationship, we're in the United States.
Okay, can you explain that to me a little bit?
OKCoin is a fiat to crypto exchange. It's US regulated. It's where we focus on the US markets. OKEx blocks US investors. Mainly because we're trying to figure out the jurisdictional issues like everyone else is. And we would applaud. This is why we also want to do this SRO, because the goal here is to let's make it simple. You know, why would the laws in the United States, and even in the States, you have the New York BIT license, you have the California BIT license maybe coming online. I mean, state by state, country by country, we have the most efficient system in the world for transferring money and any kind of transaction. Why are we going to get caught up? It'd be better if they all kind of looked the same, or at least similar. They don't have to, but it would be better.
What do you think the biggest barrier here in the United States is? Like, why is it easier? Obviously, we know this as an American trader. Like, why is it easier for exchanges to set up outside the United States, and why is the United States like so slow to drag its feet? Like, what's the problem?
I think at first it was just education. I think that the word Bitcoin, if you look back to like clips from 2013, 14,
yeah,
a lot of people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, I mean, not really Warren Buffett, but Bill Gates and some other people were like positive on Bitcoin and blah, blah. The problem is they all talked about Bitcoin.
Right.
Bitcoin is like the OG original blockchain system, right? What we should have done is said, here is the internet, here's a version of the internet, like back in the 90s, instead of saying, here's Amazon.
Right.
Or here's this. So that was a little bit of a mistake, but these things don't grow, they kind of grew out of a mass, right? So it's not like someone led the charge. And I think what's interesting is that the Bitcoin thing became this toxic, polarized concept. Is it, money laundering, which is ridiculous, because if anyone's going to money launder, there's been money laundering and terrorism before Bitcoin, right? I mean, so what are you even talking about? But the fact is that if we go back in and now talk about blockchain and just say, hey, you can have a private blockchain, a public blockchain. You can, the blockchain technology can be used for multiple asset classes, and including asset classes that you're not even thinking about right now. And it could create a new economy, an extension of the economy into microfinance and the unbanked. Most banks, most of the large banks in the US, they don't even want our bank accounts. They don't want my, some working class person's bank account. I mean, they might want ours, but they don't want theirs, and they shut them off all the time. So if those people are not getting banking opportunities and instead their only other option is payday loans, it's nonsense, right? Why would someone who's 17 can go and get $200,000 in debt to go to school, but they can't raise $200,000 to actually start a company? Right. That's a ridiculous concept.
I agree.
So I think what happens is that we have to actually define to the regulators, and there are regulators right now in the United States totally getting it. There are our congressmen, there is, inside the SEC, there's there's actually Esther, so there's all these key types of commissioners that have understood blockchain. Blockchain is not about Bitcoin, blockchain is about really a revolution in how we do things across the board.
Right.
And it's more secure, so get rid of honeypots, the Equifax hack, the Visa hack. Why are we having firewalls and these massive honeypots? It doesn't make any sense. We need to get past that. So I think that's how it started. And then it became this fear of money. Who's going to control the money? I get it. I would be nervous too about the USD. And I don't really want to, it doesn't help me or hurt me, but if the USD is going to keep, if they're going to just keep on printing money and then having these these $1 trillion in debt, that's not a good sign.
No. Especially when it kind of comes back to that payday loan that you're talking about. It's eating into all mainstream or Main Street individuals' savings. And it's pushing people into investors. It's pushing investors into riskier and riskier assets just to maintain yield. That's more associated with cutting interest rates.
But it should. But the real problem is that those investments look like they're not aggressive investments when they are, because they're all based on this mountain of debt.
Right.
If I over leverage myself and I go and buy the Facebook stock, people would be like, that's criminal, or you're an idiot.
Right.
Right. So, but that's what's happening in all these ETFs now. Oh, now they can just start cranking out a ton of ETFs. I mean, really? Is this where we're going?
Are you concerned about where we are, the state of America's economy? You said it doesn't hurt you, doesn't harm you if they just keep printing money. I think, correct me where I go astray though, because I think you said, well, that would hurt, you know what I mean?
You know what, I'm saying that I'm not someone who's like I don't know if we have the smartest people in the room when they're making these decisions, to be quite honest. Like this whole thing with the New York Fed and the swaps and all that stuff, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, but I'm American. I believe in this country. My parents came to this country and they built a really great life for us. So I want to see things work out. I want to see things go the right way. But if they keep on ignoring this, it's like ignoring the biotech or the internet, or, I mean, you can't ignore it. That just doesn't make any sense. Why? Because we have these kind of controlling interests? So what? The fact is that the Fortune 500 change every 20 years. That whole list flips every 20 years.
Yeah.
So stop patronizing the guys who you think are going to be here forever, because they're not. Fortune 5, if that list rotates that way, it should rotate that way.
Something that I commonly say, obviously there's a big thing in the news today is universal basic income, or socialism, or redistributive policies, things like this.
Sure.
And I've always been generally against those, because I just don't like those ideas. I don't think that the problem is centralization of equity or capital. I think that the problem in society is centralization of education. I think that there's very few places, you said, what's the career path, in America for a regular person? You go to high school, you get out, you go to college for 4 years, you get $200,000 in debt, you want a really good paying job? Okay, well now you're in college for 6 to 8 years and you're $450,000 in debt, and now you're a doctor, and now you're a lawyer. You're working, really, really long hours, and there's no, really good infrastructure set up to teach individuals critical thinking, to teach them how to be entrepreneurs, and to then give them access to capital to make those dreams happen. The only thing that I've found that works is if you grow up with wealth, or if you come from a family that has made smart financial decisions, and therefore you now have generational wealth. So you now can get seed.
Well, most people don't.
Right, exactly. You can get seeded from your parents, and you're good to go. So I'm always looking for. I would like that to be the case for most people. I don't think the answer is giving them money. I think the answer is giving them an opportunity to hustle and teaching them how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I come from a family where I started putting up sheetrock when I was eight years old in Brooklyn, when my parents would buy these 3 families, and my father had a fifth grade education. Okay, so but he was a welder, he was a carpenter, he was all these things. And he literally would rebuild these houses, and we would sell them. They did fantastic on the real estate market. I am terrible at real estate, actually, because I'm a Gen Xer, so every time I was buying it, it was the wrong time.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, always buy high, sell low, right?
I was like, anything else, stocks, Bitcoin, crypto, whatever, I can trade, I'm good, but I am terrible at real estate. And I always laugh at that, because I thought that maybe I'd have it in my blood. No, they were just the right timing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I do believe a lot in the educational system issues. My wife's a teacher. I think up to 5th grade, I think they do a great job. I think after that, it starts to fall off the rails. And it's not because teachers don't want to do the right. I don't think teachers get paid enough. I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. You should being a teacher. It should be a high-paying job. But I think what you're looking for is if. The problem is the younger generation is almost like hopeless, or they're like, and they're angry because they hear that their world is not going to be the same, and then they're paying up on this massive old debt, and it's, in some ways, it doesn't really matter, that old debt. I mean, if all the countries said, oh, we're going to just all forgive each other's debt, they could start off from zero again. Now, I don't know how that would affect the markets. I'm not a massive, I'm not this kind of macroeconomist. But if I owe you $1 and you owe me $1, and we both said, hey, we're gonna just erase it, what would happen, right? That, I think, is a better idea than giving people. Let's print more money to give people more money that's worthless.
Right. So they can pay off debt that we could just resolve.
Yeah.
I think the simple answer, unfortunately, is probably that it's probably a little bit more complicated than that.
Probably.
But I mean, it's kind of this sort of Damocles, man. We're in a situation in America where we have an insane amount of debt. The government we have the overnight repo market crisis. The Fed has stepped up quantitative easing to inject money into that market.
Which I still don't understand why people don't get fired when things like that go wrong and they don't see it happening.
It's ridiculous. If you
How
think
are
back
you
to
in the job? How'd you get the job?
Right.
Because of your experience of not having that happen. If I did that, or you did that, and it was in the private sector, I'd be fired.
You'd be fired.
And I'd be happy to be fired. I'd be like, wow, I was in over my head. I should have taken that job. But how are these people not getting in trouble or getting thrown out? It's like how can the overnight repo market get so out of control? And then the worst part is, okay, if it happens and you say, we don't know, they actually come out and say, we don't know why it happened. How can you not know why it happened? I mean, if anyone has to know why it happened, tell us. Oh, because we're so up in debt, blah, blah, blah. It's this number tied to that number. It's a lot of smart people. My assumption is they do know why it's happening. They just don't want to say it.
They just don't want to say it. What scares me more is that they don't know why it's happening, and they're telling the truth. Yeah, that's what terrifies me. There's a part of me that does think they're I can't remember who it was. Somebody made a really good analogy of the Federal Reserve Bank being a monkey on a unicycle balancing 10 plates, right? And it's like, that's precarious. But here in America, we got a pretty good monkey, so far. But it's still a monkey on a unicycle balancing 10 plates.
If they have 10 plates, they get 5 more monkeys. Right. They make them two actual plates each. Yeah. I mean, stop making it like, oh, we're just too dumb to really understand, because we're not. I mean, it's a little bit annoying, and I think that's why people move to crypto. Now, I have friends who are in, when I was in the internet age during the early 90s, mid 90s, I'd be like, everyone's gonna have a website, and my friends would make fun of me about it, and And now those same friends who are totally like that type of people are like, Bitcoin's a scam. I'm like, it's not about Bitcoin.
Right.
And Bitcoin's not a scam. It's just a decentralized network, and it's being used as a currency. That's what it basically is. It's just technology. It's being used to convert it's being used as a currency model. And I sit there and I'm like, this is totally because of the news, right? The news is just pumping out this garbage while they're buying Bitcoin. The best ever is on Twitter, one of the heads of the trading desk at this large bank, the CEO comes out, says, and I'm not going to name names because God knows why, but the CEO comes out and he's slamming Bitcoin, and a guy in the desk, and I knew the guy, he was on my Twitter, I know a lot of traders on Wall Street, and he's like, I'm buying it. You idiot?
Yeah.
Yes, you wrote that in the tweet. And I was like, well, that guy probably got fired, but...
He probably did pretty well.
But, he probably has so much Bitcoin now, he probably didn't even care. But, it just shows that there's, and I'm not a conspiracy guy by any means. I was a NASDAQ guy. I mean, I've been around like kind of private equity funds. I'm a pretty kind of vanilla guy. But when it comes to what we're seeing now is just it's daunting, and the rest of the countries aren't really doing that. It's not like everybody's perfect. It's great that Malta's coming out and that we have like the Bahamas and all these guys, but we need major markets to say it's okay, guys. I think what they're worried about is that if they ever said Bitcoin or blockchain's important in general, you'd probably have a massive rush to buy it. And it would skyrocket the price, and it would move, think about it, $8 billion over what, like a year was invested into altcoins. Mm-hmm. That's all, that trend line, when it starts to eat into mutual funds and ETFs and normal investments, that's a bit of an alarm.
Do you think that's kind of a narrative that people lose sight of when they're like, oh, why isn't more money flowing into Bitcoin? Well, you have the entire market out there competing with this other asset class for liquidity and customers.
And it's a tiny little piece of asset class that if they really want to manipulate it, they can. It's not that hard. It's only it's 120 billion. That's really not that much. So I'm not saying they are. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just saying that market forces, you have to look at market forces, and you have to look at motivation. The behavioral motivation as to why someone's doing things. That's all.
Working at OKEx, there's going to be a lot of viewers who have traded cryptocurrency or cryptocurrency traders or speculators, and most of them probably on the retail side. Is that what do you see, retail traders and their kind of experience with cryptocurrency from, kind of from an OKEx perspective?
I think that on a actual global basis, you're going to have it's 1%. There's not that many people. And it's probably the 1% of people that, first of all, are into this type of stuff, okay? So they kind of know, I would hope most of them know the risks, right? It is risky, absolutely risky. It is the riskiest asset class out there because laws could change, and that's one risk. There's a lot of risk, but what we're seeing is that people want to get into cryptocurrency. The newer, younger people, there's a study that a person under 30 or under 40 really would rather trade a cryptocurrency than trade stocks. So we know that there's an opportunity there. Now the issue is that they're bucketing cryptocurrency or tokens all into one bucket when literally that's what the regulators are getting crazy about. You have to separate them. There is a good rationale of us just trading something that could be used for something else, like I see wine futures. I know I work with Mike Turpin, and Mike Turpin is very talks about wine futures all the time. If he could buy a wine future, which is not a security, when they deliver the wine, okay, he can either drink the wine or he can sell the bottle of wine at a higher price. Still not a security. And I'm like, yeah, that's what this basically is. So I do think that as we get more mainstream blockchain adoption and start utilizing the tokens for what they're being utilized for in their method, the regulators will start to understand that this thing might start this way as a security, but eventually if it gets used, it turns into something else. It's just a more complex world, and it doesn't have to be super complex, just a little bit more complex.
So a bright future for cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency traders.
I'm bullish on the entire idea, the market. I'm bullish on people being able to get access to money and grow, and I think there's a huge pie. I mean, think about this. This pie was invented out of zero. This is a brand new pie.
That's already a pretty big pie.
Yeah.
Listen, I wish I could answer your guys' questions, but we're on a time, man. I apologize.
No problem.
So we'll get to them. Actually, you know what? If you want, we'll follow up and maybe do another remote interview so we can answer some of these questions that we maybe didn't get to.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, man.
All right, thank you.
Highly appreciate it.